Goeiedag. Cannabiscup. Eén keer in het jaar komen heel veel mensen uit Amerika naar Amsterdam voor de cannabiscup. Het is niet zo vreselijk bekend, omdat het een beetje exclusief wereldje is. De mensen van de cannabisdetailisten, de coffeeshops, maar vooral veel Amerikanen. In Amerika is de vrijheid op het gebied van cannabis, van de marihuana natuurlijk veel geringer dan hier. En dus komen ze 1 keer per jaar hier naartoe. Maar het aardige is dat met die grote groep, en dat zijn echt vliegtuigen vol, ongeveer 2500 man, er ook altijd een aantal, wat ze dan celebrity judges noemen, mensen die hier komen om mede te bepalen wat dan de beste hash is, of de beste marihuana, of de beste wiet. En een van die mensen is Stephen Gaskin. En we hebben hem in het verleden wel eens geïnterviewd, maar hij is weer in Amsterdam. En we gaan met hem praten over de Amerikaanse politiek. Want, en dat is heel interessant, hij heeft zich kandidaat gesteld voor het presidentschap. Hij is Amerikaan, dus we doen het in het Engels. Welcome, Stephen.
Hey.
I briefly explained who you are, and to come right to the point, you are a candidate for the presidency of the United States.
Right.
Well, that's not what every citizen can do. Then we would have 240 million candidates.
Well, technically, you're supposed to be able to, according to the ideals. But the way it is the political situation in the United States has become so bought, and the legislature is owned by big tobacco, big oil, big auto, big everybody, big insurance, and so on. And it's to the point where the issues that the people care about don't get spoken of, because the only thing that gets spoken of is what somebody is paid to speak of it. And so I thought, well, there is a place where at least I could start challenging the other candidates.
Let's talk about the political system. As far as we know, there is two parties in the States: the Republicans.
That's what I was going to say.
And the Democrats. And
the Republicans and the Democrats are really all there is. There are a couple of other say they're third parties, but they don't have any influence. They don't have any power. I have become a convert to the idea of proportional representation, the way you have it here.
That is
and the Green Party in the United States believes in that.
Yes. Now, in Holland, we don't have representational things in the government itself, because the government is still taken from a few parties, but on the level of the local and legislation houses, so to speak, we have it. But is it that different? Because I understand in the States you have the Congress and the Senate, which is comparable to the Tweede Kamer and the Eerste Kamer. But the people in there, there's 600 people. Are they all chosen by one of the two parties?
Yes, we only have 2 governors of states that are independents, and we have 1 legislator who's an independent, and everybody else is either Democrat or Republican. So when I started off, one of the things that impelled me to run was the drug war in the United States, which is totally out of hand and is locking up, the Clinton-Gore administration has locked up 2 million people for marijuana.
Wait a minute. 2 million people. We have 260 or 200, something like that.
Yeah, we're like 1% of the population is in jail for marijuana.
1% of the population is in jail. Now, I've heard that the good news about it is that the crime rate in the state has gone down. The street crime rate.
Well, this is in New York City. It's gone down, but maybe somewhat. But the other side of it is that the fear that people used to have of being robbed, they now have as fear of the police. Because the police have become
2 million people in jail. I've heard this before, that America is actually the country with the most prisoners of the world. Proportionally.
China might be ahead of us, but we don't have good figures from there, so we're not sure. But we were right up there, which shames me. We used to talk about other countries were police states. We complained about Nazi Germany and communist Russia being police states, and we're a police state. Our biggest growth industry is police right now. And
but now the question is, of course, does this work? I mean, they've put 2 million people out of society in jail, sometimes for 10 or 20 years a year, for having a little hash in the car, or even when their girlfriend is doing something. You get in. You have a whole war mechanism and a whole legal system and a whole. But does it help in the sense that?
No, it doesn't help. More people are doing not just more dope, but worse kinds of dope. As they interdicted marijuana, people started making methadone in the bathtub, which you can do out of chemical stuff. And you don't have to import anything. And so we're having a terrible speed epidemic in the United States, and speed keeps people up for 12, 36 hours at a time. They get psychotic on it, But the real thing is that the drug war breaks up more families than drugs do. It kills more people than drugs do. and it's a total overreaction. So that's what my original impetus to run was about.
But explain me a little bit, Stephen, where you come from, because I know you've written books like on cannabis spirituality, and you've been part of the cannabis alternative scene since the 60s.
Well, yeah, but that's, as Abby Hoffman said, only a small part of my work. And really what I've been into is community. And I founded a community in Tennessee that's still there 29 years later, and the neighbors are used to us. And
Wait a minute, when you say community, you mean what we would call communes, small independent groups of people?
In the United States, you'd never call any place like that a commune, because then you're a communist. You got to watch your mouth.
And since McCarthy, that's not a thing to be.
Right. You don't want to do that. But we say intentional community.
Okay.
And,
but small groups of people that take care of themselves, where money is shared, work is shared.
Well, we started off with about 275 people, and we have about that many people in the community today. The main thing about us is that having a place to live and having work figured out that doesn't depend on being in the good graces of anyone in the greater society gives us a measure of independence. We can't be fired for our political beliefs, mostly.
Yeah. But sometimes the police, I mean, we've seen other communes or communities where, for some reason, the police decided that these are dangerous people, and they came in and they bombarded them, and we're finding out that the big scandals. What was this?
Waco.
The Waco.
Right.
And more we're finding out that maybe the people weren't fighting back so bad as they were supposed to. That the police really raided them and burned them down.
They really did, and this has happened 3 times in recent history in the United States. They did it in Waco, they did it to the SLA in Los Angeles, and they did it to the Move commune in Chicago, or Detroit, I think. And Philadelphia, thank you. And they all said the same thing, which was that they thought they were outside the laws of the country. You shouldn't say that to those guys. It really makes them mad when you say that.
I always have to think, there's a thing in New England that said, don't tread on me, yes?
Yeah.
And there's this snake and whatever, and it basically says, we, American people, we fought off the English and the French and whatever was there at the beginning of we are a free nation.
Yeah.
And that liberty has to live.
Yeah.
And don't tread on me, meaning, the government should in
Right. When William O. Douglas retired from the Supreme Court, he says, all the commentary on the Constitution boils down to the government shall not be on the back of the people. That's what it really means. But they've got it turned around now to where the government can make treaties that the people don't agree to, that the people have to live with, like the GATT and the NAFTA treaties, which are making it so big multinational corporations can go into any small country and compete with the little mom and pop local enterprises and take them out, and the businesses, not just quoted in America, all the multinational businesses are together, and that is the danger. I've lived to see when we used to think that the Nazis were the danger. Now it's where for a while the United States was the danger.
The Russians were
the Russians were the danger. Now the United States is the danger, but now it's not even the United States. It's just the multinationals are the danger, and even the United States has occupied territory.
Well, you sound a little bit leftish. But still, I think you have libertarian ideas, or not?
Well, I'm not really a libertarian, because I think a libertarian sometimes in the United States is a Republican who smokes pot.
You say he's a right-wing...
Yeah, they say, well, you can smoke dope and the oil companies can do whatever they want to, too.
So I feel a poise against big companies. Is that all your life you've been an alternative... well, I wouldn't say preacher, but definitely a spiritual man and a teacher, a writer. Why this sentiment against the powers there?
Because I think that the people should have the right to rule themselves, and the people are losing that right because the democratic countries are being so taken over by the corporations that the governments are secondary to the corporations. And I believe that the government's job is to protect the people from the corporations.
Well, but they're doing. I mean, they're taking Bill Gates to court and say, "Hey, you got too monopolistic, too powerful."
Yeah, after it gets to the point where the 225 billionaires have as much money as the bottom 45% of humanity.
Yeah, Bill Gates could buy a country every day of the week. Yeah.
He could go through and he could fix the school system in Zaire one week, and he could go and do the primary health care in another country the next week.
He might do that. Yeah.
But
some of the richer people from the past have done that. The Rockefeller Foundation and
some of that kind of thing. But see, Europe has the has the tradition of noblesse oblige. You know.
Yeah, but isn't that in the States?
No,
I mean, the Rockefeller Center. Where's this new?
Well, it's like Rockefeller used to carry a pocket full of dimes, and he would give people a dime and say, "That's your share. I had my accountant figure it out."
Getty, this is the new LA art centers.
Yeah, art centers. The art centers don't do anything for the poor people. They always want to fund some big thing they can put their name on and stuff, but they don't do anything like, for instance, let's fund primary health care for a few million people. See, in the United States, we have 46 million people who are uncovered by health care in the United States. Now, here that's almost unthinkable. Everybody has health care over here. There's 46 million people who don't have it, who can just lay on the street and die. We have people living in our streets. You don't have that here. You know, you walk around, you don't find people laying around in the streets, homeless people.
But why would I come back to where we started? Why would people vote for a nuthead who believes in helping other people? Man, you're not an American.
Well, I think there's a lot of people who would vote for me who are not registered to vote, who have given up voting years ago because the system looked so sold out to them that they didn't think it was even worth participating. Mm-hmm. And I want to come in and I want to speak truth, and I'm in a unique position because I once lost my citizenship and voting rights from going in the penitentiary.
Oh, you've been in jail?
Yes, I did a year in the penitentiary for marijuana, and my lawyer got my voting rights back, and he did it in a class action suit that got back voting rights for 250,000 other convicts as well as me. So I figure, at least I can say it was 250,000 of you guys owe me a vote. I got your rights back.
That's a little bit. I mean, it's not enough. You never make it, but you can make a stand.
That's the deal. I have a two-pronged thing. One is that I do good sound bites. I'm not afraid of television. I've been asked what I smoke on live television so many times it's sharpened up my reflexes. So I'm willing to do that kind of thing. But I also want to honestly build the Green Party in the United States because I feel that the two-party system is so easy for them to buy out. And we should have some
When you say buy out, it's so easy to influence.
No, not influence. Like you go and you give guys who are going to be elected hundreds of thousands of dollars and make them enough money so they can get elected, and then you own them and they do what you say, and they don't do what the people who voted for them say. They do what the guy who bought them says. So our legislature is so completely...
You're painting a little bit of a corrupt nation, a nation where the democratic system has faltered.
Yes, I am painting that picture. I am not doing it accidentally. It saddens me. It's a tragic fact of our life over there, but the big money powers have taken over till you cannot depend on the government to be fair. And otherwise...
But that's a sad thing to say. I mean...
Oh, God, yes.
Kids grow up in school and they pledge they say this is our nation.
Yeah.
That's not what we do in Holland, but we see that in America. There is a feeling of being American.
Yeah.
You act as the policeman of the world.
Well,
we don't like that, but you do.
I'm not packing myself. I got no gun. I don't be the cops of the world. But.
No. But Clinton acts like that,
right.
and
I'm happy to be a hippie on the road because people in other countries don't blame the foreign policy on me. They don't think I had anything to do with it, and they're right. But
you are a hippie on the road. You remind me of course, of Tim Leary, who ran for governor of California. Of California at one time. Mm-hmm. He had great fun.
He had great fun, and I'm having great fun, but I couldn't have any fun at all if I wasn't trying to help out the situation that I see is so bad. And that's what brings me out. Like, I'm 64 years old. I could retire at a point like this. Somebody introduced me a couple of weeks ago as a man who had flunked retirement. But I have all my life trained myself to be a media samurai, to get out there and not buy television time, but to be interesting enough that I get to be on television and have my opinions.
A media Don Quixote.
Yeah.
Because you even have on your card Rocinante. That's a mark you have.
A Don Quixote's horse. And it's the vehicle for an incurable idealist.
But you've been in jail. I don't see you as a rich guy.
I'm not a rich guy. Me and Ina may make it for about, $14,000 a year, I think. But of course, that's not a fair thing to say because although I don't make much money a year, the community I live in owns 4.2 square miles of land. and our children get to run in the free woods, and we're safe in our woods. We don't have a crime problem and that sort of thing where we live. But we went out and bought that land and put a fence and a gate up in order to have that privilege, you know. So we actually live a little better than $14,000 a year represents, just from the nice place we get to live. But basically, I haven't worked in the system enough to have very much Social Security. When I start getting Social Security, it's not going to be much. But fortunately, being a writer and a lecturer, I don't have to quit until I can't walk anymore. You know, if I was a basketball player, I'd be in trouble. But
so you're there. Listen, if you start this whole campaign, it basically will be in the next millennium. So coming from a 60s idea of Summer of Love, and you've been at all the places with all the people of the 60s generation. Is there something we should preserve of that and take over into the next millennium?
Yes, I really think so. I think that in Europe there is a tradition that the artists and the writers have their day and they're part of the world, and you don't try to like get rid of them or anything, and you know, and everybody sort of respects them, and it's okay if they, you know, drink or smoke a little pot or something because, you know, they're artists and they're having a good time and like that. In the United States, we almost lost that. And the idea that there was supposed to be a permanent bohemian fraction of society is pretty much was lost. And the hippies brought that back. And so we still are influenced. And we influence the clothes, and we influence the television, and we influence the music, and we influence the fashions. And to some degree, we influence the politics. And these days, it's getting where respectable people want to come out and tell you that they used to be a hippie. They want you to know. They want to say, yes, yes,
we were on the bus. We were on the bus.
Yeah,
but where did the bus go? And where is the bus heading?
Well, that's my point. I'm a bus driver, and you know, I am not somebody who's marching to a different drum. I am one of those drummers.
going somewhere. It's very funny because there was a report made about Amsterdam about the cultural impact of the city, and they said there's two important things in Amsterdam. That is hippiedom, and of course the whole culture that you are now in, the coffee shops, but also the art. And there is the official. Rembrandt and, you know, the Van Gogh. We're sitting about a horrible copy, but, you know, due to beeldrechten, to copyright on image, we can only have horrible copies of things. But anyway, so there's these two cultures in Amsterdam, and they're actually proud on the fact that we are a hippie city still.
Yeah.
But what I want to try to find is how in the daily government that hippiedom, that belief that love is important, that spirituality counts, is brought into practice, and I don't see very little of that.
Well, where we live in Tennessee, we registered up to vote, and we put people on the county council, and so we're represented in the government there, and one of our lawyers is a family court judge over in the county seat and goes over and judges the people who are straight. You know, and
so you would say there is a way of being in the system, and that's what you want to do, because you are going to run for president of the United States. You're part of the system. You're going to be on TV, right. and in the whole.
But not only that, I'm going to raise interest in the Green Party, and I'm going to get people registered Greens. And there are other guys who are running local races where they're trying to get to be in the city council or something as a Green representative. And I'm going to have coattails because I'm going to register more people. I'm going to help all those guys get in at the grassroots level, you know. And I've become a Green. You know, I think that the United States has got to amend its constitution so we have proportional representation the way most countries have proportional representation. So if you're a minority party, you can still be part of the action. Like in Germany, the Greens are 10%, and they're part of a coalition that would have a hard time without them. You know, that they help bring up a coalition into existing with their little 10%.
That's a German system where a small thing. Would a small faction, even with a few congressmen and whatever, have an impact?
I think it would, because the way they have it now is there's the Democrats and there's the Republicans, and then there's the liberal Republicans that sometimes vote Democrat, and there's the conservative Democrats that sometimes vote Republican, you know. And if you got in there and you had a liberal fraction of some kind, so that the liberal guys could join with the liberals on some issues and stuff, and the liberal, there could be somebody who was a flag carrier for those issues, and not have those
swinging
issues.
votes, so to speak.
Yeah, and those issues, because otherwise those issues are totally forgotten because they don't have big money behind them. And somebody needs. There's more poor people than rich people. It would stand to reason they would win an election sometimes, but they don't, because the rich people are so good at buying the elections. So we have to.
That's the horrible thing you say, that people buy elections. I still believe in this country. Actually, I ran for the Euro Parliament on my own ticket, not a party, and just to prove it's possible, and it's still possible. At least the system allows you to do it, and even the government gives you some money for promotion. And I was on the ballot list, number 8 list. I got 10,500 votes, not enough to get me there, but I was there. Like you, just to prove that the system is still there. You can run for office. Anybody can run for office.
Right.
Yeah.
And on a local level, on small councils and stuff, you can still do that in the States. But on the large levels, it's taken up because the tobacco companies don't want anybody to mess with them, and the hospital companies don't want anybody to mess with them. So they have their lobbyists in to be sure that no congressman pass any laws that bother any of their interests. By the time all those laws are stopped from happening, all the laws that protect the people are stopped from happening, because those are the basic laws that they are wanting to keep from being passed, is the ones that would protect the people.
That's clear. Again, just briefly looking at the next millennium and the drug problem, because we're here at the cannabiscup. If you were president, would you change the laws there?
If I could, I certainly would. The first thing I would do is to decriminalize marijuana, and I would think that growing your own and small amounts among friends should not even be regulated. That should just be left alone. And then if you want to be a big-time grower, that you would have government marijuana stores, which in Oregon they have state liquor stores, and they don't advertise or anything, but there's just the address, you know where the place is. And you could have government marijuana stores where people who had medical reason to have marijuana could have the very top quality at very low prices, and you wouldn't let it go into the hands of the tobacco companies. You wouldn't let it become industrialized.
That's true, and that's what we thought in Holland, and very soon the trade in semi-legal trade became in the hands of a few people, and who were at first idealists, and now they're into the money, and the coffee shop business is becoming a little bit more, I wouldn't say criminal, but it's getting tougher, harder. That's the word. But now look at the situation. Marijuana has good effects, but it also has side effects. If a legal marijuana trade in shops and whatever would emerge, like in the software industry and in the tobacco industry, in the oil industry, very soon there would be big monopolies growing or big companies growing, and in 10 years' time or 15 years' time, you would have a situation where the marijuana trade would be as big as the tobacco trade, and you would have the same legal problems.
Well, another part of my platform is to not let the idea that Monsanto has of taking over the farming and the growing of seeds of the world into a monopoly. And I would really hate to see a few factory seeds, or like the Monsanto corn that will give you one crop and then it's sterile and won't give you a second crop.
Yeah, that's a horrible thing. This is what they've done. That's genetic manipulation.
That's a sin in anybody's religion, I believe.
Yes, they have made seeds for crops, for grain or whatever, and you can plant them and you get the stuff. But next year they won't have.
The seeds are dead. They're
the
sterile.
Seeds are dead, and we're eating the seeds. We're eating the dead seeds. I mean, this is the thing where we have manipulated it in such a way that it dies. And do we think that our bodies won't recognize the difference between alive and dead cells? Yes, man. And they do it because that way you have to buy Monsanto seeds
every year, right? See?
Now, think about it. The people in Africa who get this seed for some reason, they think it's good seed. They put it in the soil instead of their traditional seed, and they get bigger plants and more white grain or whatever. But the next year, there's nothing there.
They got to buy the seed.
They've got to buy the seed, and they're hooked. That's a new drug.
That's it. Making food into a drug and making anything you need, medical care, food. They will put it into like an addiction form for you.
Yeah, I agree. And that's horrible.
And I'm not just about legalizing marijuana. See, I don't think that anybody could legalize marijuana into an otherwise Republican wasteland. If I was to actually become elected, it would be evidence of such a huge change in American politics that I would have a whole Congress and Senate with me.
If there's a big millennium crisis, do you think you have more of an opportunity or a chance?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't think there's going to be a big millennium crisis. I think the worst thing that's going to happen to people at the millennium is the con men who are going to con them out of their savings because of the millennium or something.
The criminal aspect of it. Yet there is a fear of the millennium.
I know there is, and in Europe in the last millennium they didn't build any cathedrals for the last 100 years coming down onto the millennium because they figured why bother building something that's going to last a long time, And so we're a little like that, and some of the side effects are even amusing, like a bunch of of Christians from Tennessee in the South had T-shirts printed up that said, "I'm sorry," in Arabic and Hebrew, and they went to the Middle East and apologized for the Crusades.
They thought, better safe than sorry. We've spoken with Stephen Gaskin. He is, ik zal het nog even in het Nederlands doen. Hij is dus een Amerikaan die heel bekend is uit de wereld van de marihuana. Maar hij heeft allerlei boeken geschreven over spiritualiteit, zoals Cannabis Spirituality. Hij heeft wat wij een commune noemen. Hij is heel erg actief geweest en is dus nu bezig om te proberen presidentskandidaat te worden voor de verkiezingen. En dat duurt nog een tijdje, maar hij is in ieder geval heel duidelijk. Hij wil de groene gedachte, zoals we het in Europa kennen, de green, in Amerika tot bloei laten komen. Niet alleen voor zichzelf, maar ook voor mensen die op andere niveaus van de staat of de gemeente, of bijvoorbeeld politieofficier worden, sheriff, burgemeester, dat soort zaken, wil die groene mensen krijgen. Dus we hebben gesproken met een van de mensen die in Amerika de groene gedachte wil uitdragen. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. Always fun to come and hang out with you.